subscribe and like. And tell your friends about this video.
I wasn't always a man with a plastic wristband and cold oatmeal. Once I stood in front of blackboards and auditoriums. "Mr. Whitman," they'd say, sometimes with fear, often with admiration. I taught American history at Oak Ridge High for 34 years. Before that, I fought in Korea, saw men die in snow for a hill nobody remembers now, earned a Purple Heart that sits in a box somewhere under broken photo frames and tax receipts. My hands used to hold chalk, rifles, wedding vows, newborn children. Now they tremble when I reach for the plastic cup of water next to my hospital bed. My name is Harold Whitman, but here, I'm just room 216. It was Susan's idea. She didn't say the word abandon. No. She smiled, lips tight, voice syrupy. "Just a few days for observation, Dad. The doctor said your blood pressure's a concern. We'll check in, I promise." Daniel didn't even show up. Sent a text. "Hope you feel better, Pops. Hang in there." That was 11 days ago. I haven't seen anyone since. Not one call, not a message, not a single damn knock on the door except for nurses doing rounds. The hospital smells like old bread and bleach. I spend hours staring at the window, dirty, double-paned, facing the parking lot. Each time a car pulls up, my heart stutters. Maybe they remembered. Maybe today. Maybe they'll walk in holding flowers, apologizing, crying. They don't. They never do. Stan, my roommate, died last week, quietly in his sleep. They wheeled him out at 3:17 a.m. like garbage. I watched from my bed. No one came to claim his things. A book, a single sock, a photograph of a dog with its ears half cut off. I used to have a dining table that seated 6. Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays, chaos, laughter. Mashed potatoes smeared on the wall because Ava threw them at her brother. That was just 5 years ago. Now my meals arrive on trays with plastic cutlery. Everything tastes like wet cardboard. This place, it's not death. It's worse. It's where you wait to be forgotten. Yesterday I tried standing without the walker. I wanted to feel something. Pain is better than being numb. My knees buckled. I collapsed. The nurse rushed in. "Jesus, Mr. Whitman, you can't do that." "I had to," I said. "I needed to remember what it feels like to fall." She looked at me like I was crazy. But I'm not crazy. I remember everything. Every sleepless night, every school play, every scraped knee I kissed, every sacrifice, every damn paycheck spent on ballet classes, baseball camps, SAT tutors. And now, I'm just a burden they've pawned off to strangers. The worst part isn't the loneliness. It's the betrayal. They didn't forget me. They chose to. People say love fades slowly. That's a lie. Sometimes it disappears in a single sentence. For me, it happened on day 13. The nurse, Carla, came in with her usual soft knock. "Mr. Whitman," she said, "your daughter isn't answering. Should I try your son again?" I shook my head. "No, they're busy. Life doesn't stop for old men." She opened her mouth to disagree, then closed it. She knew better. Pity is a cruel thing. You feel it even when no one speaks. She changed the sheets, adjusted the IV, asked if I wanted the TV on. I didn't. I know the shape of the ceiling better than the back of my hand. Funny, isn't it? The last years of your life spent memorizing stains and cracks. After she left, I stared at the phone on the bedside table. Beige, scratched, heavy, like a relic. I lifted it, dialed Susan. 3 rings, 4, 5. Voicemail. Her voice cheerful, recorded years ago. "Hi, this is Susan. Leave a message and I'll get right back to you." A lie wrapped in sunshine. I didn't leave a message. Next I dialed Daniel, straight to voicemail. "Of course." I set the phone down gently, like it was a wounded bird. My hands were shaking, not from age, but from something deeper. The realization that somewhere along the way, I stopped being their father and became an obligation, a chore, a thing to put off, a man forgotten by the very people he raised. At noon they brought lunch, gray chicken, lukewarm peas, the kind of food designed not to offend anyone, because no one cared enough to give it flavor. I ate 2 bites. Pushed the tray away. That afternoon the memory hit me out of nowhere. 1993. Daniel was 12. He had a fever of 103. I carried him to the ER in my arms because the car had broken down. He buried his face in my shoulder and whispered, "Don't let me go, Dad." I held him so tight my arms went numb. I didn't let him go then. He let me go now. Around 5 p.m., a volunteer knocked and asked if I wanted to join Family Bingo Hour in the rec room. Family, bingo, hour. I laughed so hard I nearly choked. She apologized, not knowing why I laughed. How could she? You can't see betrayal on a medical chart. The evening settled cold and heavy. Hallways grew quieter. Machines beeped a little louder. A nurse somewhere argued softly with a patient refusing meds. Far away, someone cried into a pillow. I lay there listening to the world forget people like me. Then around 9:14 p.m., the phone rang. My heart sprinted. I grabbed it so fast my IV line tugged. "Dad?" Susan's voice. I swallowed. "Yes." "Look, I'm sorry," she said quickly, like she was speeding through a checklist. "Work is insane. Ava has rehearsals. Tom's traveling. I've been overwhelmed." Overwhelmed. The word hit like a punch. I raised this woman, fed her, protected her, paid for everything from braces to college. I held her when her husband cheated the first time. I gave her my savings when she and Tom bought their house. But she was overwhelmed. I closed my eyes. "Do you know what day it is?" She hesitated. "Tuesday?" "It's your mother's birthday." Silence, thick, heavy, suffocating. Finally, she said, "Oh, I forgot." I didn't yell, didn't cry, didn't accuse. I just said, "Yes, Susan, you forgot." And I hung up. Not out of anger, out of truth. The kind that sits in your chest like a stone. The kind that changes something in you. That night, for the first time since they left me here, I looked at myself in the small metal mirror. Wrinkled, pale, fragile. But behind the frailty, something flickered. A spark. A memory of the man I used to be. The one who fought winters in Korea, who stood in classrooms with fire in his voice, who loved his wife with a devotion that outlived her. I realized something brutal and liberating. They may have abandoned me, but I wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. The next morning I woke before dawn, not from pain or a nurse poking at my veins, but from stillness, a kind of silence that felt different. I sat up slowly, the IV pulling at my skin. My legs dangled off the side of the bed, cold tile below, cold air above, but inside me, warmth, a flicker. Something I hadn't felt in weeks, resolve. I had stared too long at walls that offered nothing back. I'd listened to the lies. "We're busy. We'll visit. We love you, Dad." Until they turned into dust, I wasn't angry anymore. No, I was awake. The hospital had become a waiting room for the forgotten. But not for me, not anymore. I asked Carla for a pen and paper. She blinked in surprise. "You want to write something, Mr. Whitman?" "No," I said. "I want to say something they can't ignore." She handed me a notepad and left me alone. The first words came hard, my hands shook, but then they poured out, line after line, not accusations, not guilt trips, just memories, stories, truth. I wrote to Daniel first, told him about the night he was born, how I paced the hospital floor for 10 hours while his mother screamed through labor, how I wept when the nurse handed me that squirming, pink-faced miracle. I wrote about the time we built his science project together, volcanoes and baking soda explosions in the garage. How he'd told me, "You're smarter than my teachers." Then I wrote about now, the silence, the room, the cracked chair, the way no one ever knocks anymore. To forget someone is cruel, I wrote, but to remember them and choose silence, that's betrayal. Then I wrote to Susan. I reminded her how she used to crawl into our bed at night when thunder scared her, how I'd hum Blue Moon until she fell asleep. I told her how I used to sneak out of work early to watch her dance recitals, even when I had exams to grade or meetings to run. And then I wrote the line that mattered most. "The man you've forgotten raised you with hands that never let go, even when yours did." 2 letters. Simple, sharp, true, but it wasn't enough. That afternoon, I asked Carla again, "Do you still have contacts at the local paper?" She looked surprised, then smiled. You want to write an article? An obituary, I said. Her face fell. For myself, but not the way you think. I wrote a piece called What We Forget About the Old. It wasn't bitter. It wasn't dramatic. It was just honest. I wrote about the loneliness of plastic trays, the ache of unanswered phones, the weight of memories that have nowhere to land. I wrote about being visible once, and then not. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. The paper printed it online the next day. Carla brought in her phone with tears in her eyes. Mr. Whitman, she whispered, you've gone viral. That night I had 3 visitors, none of them family. A high school student who read my article in her English class. She brought a sketch she made of a soldier and said, you reminded me of my grandpa. A nurse from another floor. I showed your article to my mother, we cried. And Carla. She sat in the brown chair, yes, that chair, holding a cup of coffee. You've started something, she said. Maybe I had. That night, I didn't fall asleep to the beeping of machines. I fell asleep knowing I wasn't invisible anymore. I had remembered myself. And maybe, just maybe, the world was remembering me too. They came on a Sunday, not with balloons, not with flowers or tears, just awkward posture and the scent of guilt trailing behind them like cheap cologne. I was sitting by the window in a wheelchair, wrapped in a navy blue blanket Carla had brought from home. The article had spread like wildfire. Local radio picked it up, then some national blog people started mailing letters to the hospital. Some wrote about their parents. Others just said thank you. One woman from Oregon sent me a book and a note. You made me call my father for the first time in 6 years. And now here they were. Susan, Daniel, my children, my strangers. They entered the room as if it belonged to someone else. Susan's eyes scanned the walls, as if looking for a clock to hide behind. Daniel shoved his hands deep into his pockets. He'd grown a beard. It didn't suit him. Hey, Dad, Susan said first, voice light, rehearsed. You look good. A lie. I read what you wrote, Daniel added. His voice cracked. I couldn't tell if it was from emotion or lack of sleep. It was hard to read. I said nothing. They stood there for a few seconds, as if waiting for applause. As if their presence alone could erase the weeks of silence, Susan stepped closer, touching the edge of the window. We didn't know you were feeling that way. No, I said softly. You didn't ask. That landed like a slap. She looked down. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. Dad, he said, we weren't trying to hurt you. Life just, it moves fast. I turned to him. My voice was calm, colder than I intended. Do you think I didn't have a life when you were 5 and vomiting at 3 a.m.? When Mom was dying and still asking how your exams went? We never moved too fast for you. Daniel flinched. Good. I'm sorry, he said. Really? I believed him. That didn't mean I forgave him. Your article embarrassed us, Susan said. People at Ava's school recognized it. One mom asked if I'd really left you here alone. I tilted my head. Did you tell her the truth? Silence. I didn't write it to shame you, I said. I wrote it because it was true, and truth has weight. You're feeling it now. Susan began to cry, but they weren't the tears of a daughter mourning a father. They were the tears of someone cornered by their own reflection. You act like we don't love you, she snapped suddenly. We do, I smiled. Then you love me like a plant you forget to water. That broke something in her. She sat in the cracked brown chair. The one no one had touched for weeks. Daniel remained standing, staring out the window. I don't hate you, I said finally. You're still my children. But I'm not a man waiting for your love anymore. I remember who I am. They looked at me. Both of them. Really looked. And for the first time, I think they saw me. Not the weakened version in hospital robes, but the man beneath the wrinkles, the father who carried them through storms, the husband who stood through death, the teacher, the soldier. I'm going home next month, I said. Not with you. I'm applying to that veterans home in Westfield. They offered me a room with a view and a small teaching post. Daniel blinked. You're moving out? I was never yours to warehouse, I said. Susan wiped her eyes, nodded. They stayed a few more minutes. Small talk. apologies laced with discomfort. Then they left. As the door closed, Carla peeked in. You okay? I looked at the chair, now warm from Susan's presence. Better than I've been in years, I said. And I meant it. The day I left the hospital, the sky was unapologetically blue. Carla wheeled me to the front entrance, her eyes misty. You sure you'll be all right? She asked, half smiling, half worried. I've been all right for a while now, I said. I just didn't know it. We both looked out at the sidewalk. A black van waited with the words, Westfield Veterans Center on the side. The driver, a broad-shouldered man named Mitch, stepped out and offered me his hand. You're the history guy? He grinned. My daughter showed me your article. Said I had to shake your hand. I shook it, firmly, steady. Carla slipped a small envelope into my coat pocket. Don't open it till you're settled, she whispered. I nodded. The ride was quiet, comfortable. No beeping machines, no hollow shoes in hallways. Just wind, trees, sky. I watched the world go by like a man seeing color for the first time. Westfield wasn't much. A red brick facility, 2 floors, with a flag out front and a flower bed that someone clearly cared about. Inside, the walls were lined with photos. Black and white portraits of men in uniform, women in factory aprons, children holding flags. My people, my time. My room had a window that looked out onto a field of oak trees. There was a desk, a bookshelf, and a real armchair. Leather, worn, alive. I sat in it and exhaled a breath I didn't know I'd been holding for years. That night I opened Carla's envelope. Inside, a photo of her family, a short note, and a folded piece of lined paper with a child's handwriting. Dear Mr. Whitman, my mom says you taught history. Can you teach me too? Ellie, age 10, I cried. Then, not because I was sad, but because I had been seen, because I had become something again. 2 weeks later, I stood at a small podium in the Westfield rec room, holding a piece of chalk. Yes, chalk. Someone had dug up a portable blackboard just for me. 6 people sat in folding chairs. A retired Marine, a librarian's widow, 2 nurses on break, Carla's niece, and Ellie, who sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes wide. Today, I said, we talk about 1776. But first, let me tell you what revolution really means. They leaned in, and I came alive. Not with volume, not with grand speeches, but with something stronger, presence. I spoke of Washington, but I also spoke of heartbreak, of battlefields overseas, of love letters sent to wives of mistakes, of courage, of dignity. Afterward, Ellie raised her hand. Did history forget you, Mr. Whitman? I smiled. No, sweetheart. I just stopped reminding it I was still here. That night, I watched the sun go down over the oaks. My hands no longer shook. My voice no longer echoed inside hollow walls. I was part of something again. Daniel called once, left a voicemail. I read the article again. I'm sorry, Dad. I really am. Susan sent flowers with a card, trying to remember, trying to do better. I didn't call back, not out of bitterness, but because I didn't need to anymore. Let them carry their silence. I carried my truth, and I carried it well. The morning came like all the others. Soft light through the oaks. Bird song. Distant radio static from someone's old transistor. I was sitting at the window with a cup of real coffee. Not hospital-brewed sadness. Real coffee. Dark. Bitter. Honest. I was halfway through a book on the civil rights movement when the front desk called. Mr. Whitman, you have visitors. I already knew. Susan walked in first. She looked thinner. Not physically, spiritually. Like someone who's been carrying the wrong weight too long, Daniel followed. He looked older. Not in years, but in the eyes. They weren't dressed for apologies. No flowers, no smiles. That was good. I wasn't sure if you'd see us, Susan said. I wasn't sure either, I replied, sipping my coffee. They sat, not in the armchair, on the couch by the wall, like strangers at a wake. Daniel cleared his throat. We read your follow-up piece, the one about teaching again. About Ellie. I nodded. He stared at the floor. She's lucky. Silence. Susan opened her purse, pulled out something, folded a letter. She handed it to me. I wrote it 3 times, she said. This is the version that didn't try to defend anything. I didn't open it. You don't have to read it now, she added, or ever. I looked at them. My children, my blood, my heartbreak. You think I wrote that first article to punish you? I said quietly, but I didn't. They stayed silent. I wrote it because I refused to die quietly. Susan's eyes filled, but she didn't cry. She just nodded. That meant more. I don't need an apology, I said. I don't want one. I wanted you to remember what love is supposed to look like. It's not a phone call on birthdays. It's not guilt-wrapped flowers. It's presence. It's staying when it's hard. Showing up when you'd rather not. Daniel looked up. We failed at that. Yes, I said. But here's the cruel truth. People don't always get second chances. Sometimes they only get the memory of a first one. They didn't argue. I set the letter down. Not out of disrespect, but because I'd already read what I needed. In their posture, in their shame, in their silence. You're not the villains of this story, I added. You're just people, flawed, distracted, human. But so was I, and I never left. That landed, not loud, not dramatic, but permanent. Susan stood. Can we visit again? You can come, I said, but I won't be waiting. Her lips parted slightly, then closed. She understood. Daniel placed a hand on my shoulder. I'm proud of you, Dad. I smiled faintly. Took you long enough. They left. No hugs, no promises. Just a door closing softly behind them. That night, I taught Ellie and 3 new kids about Rosa Parks. Told them courage isn't always shouting. Sometimes it's just not moving when the world tells you to stand down. After class, Ellie asked, "Do you ever miss your family?" I paused. I miss the idea of them, I said, but I've made peace with the truth. She nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. I sat outside afterward, the sky turning orange and purple. Autumn was settling in. Leaves fell like quiet reminders. Nothing lasts forever. And that's okay. Somewhere Susan was probably rereading her letter, wondering if she'd said enough. Somewhere Daniel might be calling his daughter and listening, really listening, for the first time. That was enough. Not revenge, not justice. Just a seed planted in their silence. Let it grow. Let them carry the lesson I gave, not in words, but in absence.